it's time for some real education. I thought that we had an interesting thing happen in the country. We had the CNN little clown show, George Costanza. Brian Stelter is his name. Visit a Washington, D.C. school to find out that these kids were learning about how to spot informational lies in the news, right? How do you find fake news in the public school? So these are kids who can't do math at a very good level. They're middle high school kids who don't know how to read and write very well, but they're being taught by their liberal teachers how to spot bad information in the news, which is ironic when you stop and think about this is a guy from CNN asking them what they're learning. And one of the things we learned that the kids told Stelter was, hey, we learned that satire was a form of misinformation. One of the great literary genres of Western culture, satire, was labeled as fake information. This is one more way they want to come after sites like the Babylon Bee, right? Liberals are so literal, progressives are so one-minded when it comes to their politics that they see satire, which is a really legitimate form of art, as lying. Because usually satire is exposing the goofy things that the left are doing. So I thought this week we would take a famous piece of satire from history and talk about it as a way of trying to get the idea out there that satire is a hallmark of a healthy culture. The more you have freedom for artists and writers and poets to satirize the mores of the day, the more you have light shining into the darkness. And so we're going to go back perhaps to the most famous satire in Western history. It is A Modest Proposal by the great Jonathan Swift, Irish writer, Irish dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, a remarkable thinker, and a noted cynic. So when we think about this for a second, what is A Modest Proposal? It's a Juvenalian satire. It's one of the great satirical works of Western culture. And what it does is it deals with the British's treatment of the Irish. At this time, the Brits had a stranglehold on Irish nationalism, and what was happening is that you had all of these children, these Irish kids who had lost family in the wars, who had lost fathers to warfare, particularly against the Brits. You had all of these starving children in the streets of Ireland, and nobody really to look after them. There was a mess, sociological mess going on. And so Swift, who was Irish himself, said, how do we call attention to this? And what he wanted to do is he wanted to write a satire. And so take a look at this quote. In order to make his satire work, and the satirical premise was this: if we really don't care about Irish babies, maybe we can make use of them. What if we take Irish babies and sell them as food? Let them eat, plump them up until they're about 10, 12, 15 pounds, then sell them. And think about how many homeless people, think about how many starving people would be fed by these Irish babies. And it would be a useful thing because it gets rid of all the starving Irish babies. And so in order to write this kind of outrageous satire, he has to be very, very tongue-in-cheek, very, very good about making you believe that he believes this is the answer. So we'll just read the first part of this to give you how even he plays this. He writes, "It is a melancholy object to those who walk through this great town or travel in the country when they see the streets, the roads, the cabin doors crowded with beggars." Starts with an obvious truth. Some persons of a desponding spirit are in great concern that vast numbers of poor people who are aged, diseased, or maimed, and I have been desired to employ my thoughts to what course may be taken. Here's a problem. It's a real problem. How do we fix it? I'm serious, guys. I want to come up with a good example, and then you get this. "But as to myself, having been wearied out for many years with offering vain, idle, visionary thoughts, and at length utterly despairing of success, how we handle with this crisis, I fortunately fell upon this modest proposal, which, as I says, it is wholly new. It is something solid and real." So he's setting up his argument, which we'll look at later in the week, with this really remarkable gambit. You don't deny we have a problem, do you? Number one. Number two, it's a horrible problem without a solution, right? Right. And so that means we've got to come up with new ways of handling the situation, correct? Correct. So we're going to learn about my modest proposal in the satire. And if you get that far with him, he's dead serious. At least he makes you believe he's dead serious. It's going to be amazing how many readers since the time of Swift have taken him actually seriously. It's one more reason satire does matter as a literary genre.